The sky above Allura had always been beautiful. Two suns rose and set in perfect harmony, painting the heavens in gold and crimson. Floating cities shimmered peacefully in the upper atmosphere, and below them, vast gardens stretched across continents untouched by war. For 10,000 years, the Valorans had known only peace. They believed the universe, at its core, was kind. They were wrong. It began without warning. No signal, no declaration, no chance to prepare. One moment, the skies were calm, and the next, they were on fire. Massive warships tore through orbit like dark gods descending. Their hulls blotted out the light of the twin suns, casting entire cities into shadow. Then came the first strike. A beam of white-hot energy lanced down from the heavens. It hit one of the orbital platforms. For a single second, everything was still. Then the platform disintegrated. Not exploded. Erased. Millions of tons of structure, along with everyone inside it, vanished in a blinding flash. The shockwave rippled outward, shattering nearby stations and sending debris screaming through the sky like falling stars. On the surface, people looked up. They didn't understand what they were seeing. They had no context for it, no history of violence, no instinct for war, only confusion, only fear. Then the second strike came, and the third, and the fourth. Within minutes, Valor's orbit was filled with fire. The Dominion fleet had arrived. They moved with terrifying precision, every shot deliberate, every target chosen for maximum destruction. Communication hubs, energy grids, transport networks, not random chaos, systematic annihilation. The Valorans tried to respond, but there was nothing to respond with. Their ships were not warships. Their defenses were not built for combat. Their technology, advanced as it was, had never been designed to kill. They had never needed it. Until now, cities began to fall. Entire regions went dark as power grids collapsed. Emergency systems activated across the planet, but they were overwhelmed almost instantly. Evacuation routes jammed. Signals crossed. Panic spread faster than any weapon. And still, the Dominion did not stop. They didn't demand surrender. They didn't open negotiations. They didn't even acknowledge their enemy. Because to them, the Valorans weren't an enemy. They were prey, high above the burning world. Aboard the command ship, a single figure watched it all unfold. Supreme Commander Vorin, massive, unmoving, his armor-like skin reflecting the destruction below like polished black glass. This was not chaos to him. This was order. This was how the universe worked. The strong rose. The weak were erased. And Valora was weak. Minimal resistance, one of his officers reported. Vorin didn't respond immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the planet. "Continue the operation," he said at last, his voice cold, echoing through the chamber. "Ensure complete compliance." Compliance, not victory, because this was never a battle. It was a harvest. Back on the surface, the truth was beginning to settle in. This was not an attack they could survive. This was extinction. Families huddled together in the ruins of once beautiful cities. Emergency broadcasts looped endlessly, offering instructions that no longer mattered. Leaders called for calm, for unity, but their voices trembled with a fear they could no longer hide. For the first time in their history, the Valorans faced something they did not understand: cruelty without reason, violence without limit, and an enemy that would not stop. Above them, the sky continued to burn, and somewhere in that fire, something even worse was coming. Something that would decide whether Valora lived or vanished forever. Valora was not built for war. It never had been. For 10,000 years, the Valorans had followed a single belief. Peace was not just a choice. It was their identity. They were creators, not destroyers. Their cities floated not for defense, but for beauty. Their technology healed, restored, and connected. Their greatest achievements were not weapons, but art, medicine, and harmony. Conflict, to them, was a relic of a primitive past. Something lesser species had not yet evolved beyond. They had studied war, of course, observed it from a distance, analyzed its patterns, even predicted its outcomes. But they had never felt it. Until now, across the planet, what remained of their leadership scrambled to respond. In the capital city of Saruth, deep within the Great Hall of Unity, the High Council gathered in emergency session. Holographic displays flickered wildly, showing collapsing infrastructure, failing systems, and the steady advance of Dominion forces. Every update was worse than the last. "We are losing orbital control," one advisor said, his voice unsteady. "Primary defense grid is offline. Casualty estimates are rising exponentially." No one needed the exact numbers. They could see it in the sky. The High Counselor stood at the center of the chamber, silent, his large eyes fixed on projection of their world slowly being consumed by fire. For decades, he had guided his people through times of prosperity and peace. He had negotiated trade agreements, resolved minor disputes, and overseen cultural expansion. He had never prepared for this. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked quietly. A pause. Then, "None capable of combat." The words hung in the air like a death sentence, because that's what they were. The Dominion, by contrast, had been built for this moment. They were not a civilization of peace. They were a civilization of conquest. Every aspect of their society revolved around one principle. Strength is the only truth. From birth, their kind was shaped for dominance. War was not a tragedy. It was a proving ground. Victory was not enough. It had to be absolute. And under the command of Supreme Commander Vorin, they had perfected it. Dozens of species had already fallen before them. Entire civilizations erased. Others enslaved. Their cultures reduced to dust beneath Dominion rule. To Vorin, Valora was nothing new. Just another world. Just another test. Just another demonstration of power. Back on the surface, the difference between the two species could not have been more clear. The Valorans tried to save lives. The Dominion sought to end them. Medical centers overflowed with the wounded. Healers worked without rest, using every tool they had to preserve life. But the injuries they faced were beyond anything they had ever encountered. Burns from energy weapons, structural collapse injuries, shock, trauma, too many, far too many. And still they kept trying, because that was who they were. Even as their world burned, they chose to heal instead of harm. But slowly, painfully, the truth became impossible to ignore. Kindness was not stopping the invasion. Peace was not protecting them. And the universe they believed in, the gentle, cooperative universe they had trusted for millennia, did not exist. In the Great Hall, silence fell as a new report came in. Dominion forces had begun surface deployments. That changed everything. Orbital bombardment was devastating, but survivable in theory. Ground forces meant occupation, systematic control, the end of Valoran independence forever. The High Counselor closed his eyes for a moment, not in denial, in understanding. They had reached the point of no return. "What are our options?" he asked. No one answered, because there were none. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Valorans faced a reality they had never prepared for. There are enemies who cannot be reasoned with. There are forces that do not value peace. There are moments when survival itself becomes uncertain. Outside, the sky continued to burn. Cities fell, lives vanished, and across the stars, the Dominion fleet advanced without resistance. Cold, efficient, unstoppable. Valor was not just losing a war. It was being erased from existence. Far beyond the burning skies of Valora, in the cold silence between stars, a signal was received. It was fragmented, distorted, nearly lost in the noise of deep space. But it was enough. A distress call on the bridge of a human warship. The transmission played on repeat. Its broken audio filled with static, panic, and desperation. Under attack, orbital systems failing, civilian casualties. Please, if anyone can hear this, then silence. No signature. No identification. Just a dying voice echoing across the void. The officers on the bridge said nothing. They didn't need to. Everyone understood what it meant. At the center of the command deck stood Admiral Victoria Chen. She listened to the message once more, her expression unreadable. Around her, the ship moved with quiet precision. Crew members analyzed the signal, plotted trajectories, and cross-referenced known systems. Data scrolled across holographic displays in rapid streams of light. Source confirmed. An officer reported. System designation, Valora, outer sector. No formal alliance on record. Another voice followed. No military treaties. Minimal strategic value. A pause. Then more quietly, high probability of hostile engagement if we intervene. The room grew still, because now it wasn't a question of what was happening. It was a question of whether they would act. Chen finally spoke. Visual projection. The stars shifted as a holographic map expanded before them. A distant system came into focus, Valora, and around it, Dominion ships. Dozens of them, maybe more. Even at this distance, their formation was unmistakable. An invasion fleet. One of the tactical officers exhaled slowly. That's not a raid, he said. That's a full-scale extermination. No one argued. They had seen this pattern before. Entire civilizations wiped out. Nothing left behind. Estimated outcome? Chen asked. A brief hesitation. Then, total planetary loss. Timeline, hours, maybe days. The words settled heavily over the bridge. Somewhere out there, an entire world was dying. And unless something changed, it would be gone. Protocol was clear. Without an alliance, without orders, without strategic necessity, they were not required to engage. They could log the incident, report it, move on. Chun kept her eyes on the projection. A peaceful world being erased. Lives that would never be counted. Voices that would never be heard again. All because they were too weak to defend themselves. She had seen this before. Too many times. And every time, the result was the same. If no one stood up, the strong would always win. Time to intercept? She asked. 17 hours at maximum burn. Too long. Far too long. Chen's gaze sharpened. Maximum burn anyway. A few heads turned. Not in confusion. In recognition. Admiral, one officer said carefully, we don't have authorization. I'm aware. Her voice was calm. Steady. Final. Another officer leaned forward. If we engage a Dominion fleet without support, we risk losing everything out here. Chun didn't look at him. Plot the course. For a moment, no one moved. Then, Admiral. The ship shifted. Engines roared to life, building toward power level rarely used outside of full-scale war. The stars ahead stretched into lines of light as the vessel surged forward, accelerating toward the distant system, toward Valora, broadcasting nearby units. Chen ordered. Priority signal. A communications officer nodded, fingers moving rapidly. Channel open. Chun took a single step forward, then spoke. This is Admiral Chun of the United Human Fleet. Her voice carried across the void, transmitted at maximum range. To any human vessel within reach. We have received a distress signal from a civilian world under active Dominion assault. A brief pause. Then, we are moving to intercept. On distant ships, across scattered sectors of space, the message was received. And with it, a choice. We are outnumbered, Chen continued. We are outgunned. No hesitation. No illusion. Only truth. But there are lives at stake. Her eyes remained fixed on the burning system ahead. If you can reach us, do so. Another pause. Then quietly, let's show them what humanity does. The transmission ended. Silence returned to the bridge. But not for long. Multiple responses incoming. The comm officer said suddenly. Heads turned. Identifications? A faint smile touched the officer's face. Human. One by one, signals began to appear on the tactical display. Ships changing course. Engines igniting. Distances collapsing. They weren't alone anymore. Behind them, across the darkness of space, a fleet was forming. Not because they were ordered to, not because they were required to, but because they chose to. Ahead, Valora burned. The Dominion advanced. And for the first time since the invasion began, something was coming to stop them. Valora was already burning when the first human ships arrived. They didn't come in formation. They didn't wait for reinforcements. They came in fast. At the edge of the system, space itself seemed to tear open as human vessels dropped out of high-velocity transit. Engines flared, Stabilizers locked, and within seconds, they were moving straight toward the Dominion fleet. On the bridge, Admiral Victoria Chun didn't waste a second. Tactical overview. The display expanded instantly. Dominion ships, dozens, maybe more, spread across orbit in a wide, oppressive formation. Their positions were calculated, deliberate, leaving no safe approach vector. They weren't just attacking. They were controlling the battlefield. Enemy has orbital dominance, a tactical officer reported. Multiple weapon platforms active. Civilian zone still under bombardment. Chen's jaw tightened slightly. They're not slowing down. No, ma'am. There was no time for strategy meetings. No time for perfect plans. Only one option. Act now. Target priority, Chen said. The room stilled. Disrupt their formation. Draw fire away from the surface. A pause. Then, give Allura room to breathe. Aye, Admiral. The first human strike hit hard. Missiles tore through space, slamming into the outer edge of the Dominion formation. Explosions flared like artificial stars, forcing several enemy ships to break position. For the first time since the invasion began, the Dominion adjusted. On their command ship, deep within the fleet, sensors flared with new data. Unidentified vessels have entered the system. A brief pause, then human origin confirmed. At the center of the chamber, the towering figure Supreme Commander Vorin shifted slightly. Human, he repeated, not curiosity. Recognition. They are engaging our forces, an officer added. Another pause. Then, interesting. Back in orbit, the battle intensified. Human ships pushed forward aggressively, drawing Dominion fire away from the planet. Energy beams lashed across space. Shields flared under impact. Hulls burned. Explosions rippled across the battlefield. Shields at 82%. Enemy targeting lock, evasive. Return fire, Vector 3. This wasn't a clean engagement. It was chaos, controlled only by skill, instinct, and raw determination. But the Dominion adapted quickly. Too quickly. They're reorganizing, a tactical officer warned. Adjusting to our attack patterns. Chen watched the display carefully. Dominion ships were shifting, tightening their formation, redirecting fire, isolating human vessels one by one. They had done this before, many times. They're trying to split us, someone said. They will, Chen replied calmly. Then, we won't let them. Signal all units, she ordered. Stay mobile. No static positions. Force them to chase us. The human fleet responded instantly. Ships broke formation, not in retreat but in motion. They scattered, weaving through space in unpredictable patterns, forcing the Dominion to constantly adjust their targeting. It worked. For a moment, then the first human ship went down. A direct hit. Its shields collapsed under concentrated fire, and within seconds, the vessel erupted in a violent explosion. Debris scattered across orbit, glowing fragments drifting silently through space. On the bridge, no one spoke. There wasn't time. Casualty confirmed. The comm officer said quietly. Chen didn't react outwardly, but her eyes didn't leave the battlefield. More contacts incoming. Another officer called out. Human signatures. Reinforcements. Across the system, new ships dropped in, answering Chen's call. Smaller vessels. Larger cruisers. Different classes, different designs, but all with the same purpose. They joined the fight immediately. No hesitation. No fear. The battle grew. Louder, brighter, deadlier. And still, the Dominion held the advantage. They outnumber us, the tactical officer said. And they always will, Chen replied. Another human ship took a hit, crippled, drifting. Then another, and another. Each loss hit hard. Each one mattered. But something else was happening too. Something subtle. The Dominion had stopped firing at the surface. Their attention had shifted. Fully. Completely. Orbital bombardment has ceased, the sensor officer confirmed. A quiet realization spread across the bridge. They had done it. Not one. Not even close. But for the first time since the invasion began, Valora was no longer defenseless. Below, on the surface, The skies still burned, but the strikes had stopped. People emerged from shelters, looking upward, not in terror this time, but in confusion. And something else, something new, hope. Back in orbit, the war raged on. Explosions lit the darkness. Ships clashed in deadly silence. Fire met fire, force met force. And at the center of it all, humanity stood its ground, outnumbered, outgunned, losing ships, but not backing down, because this was no longer just a battle. It was a statement. The Dominion did not respond with diplomacy. It responded with annihilation. The first strike came without warning. 3 Valoran outer colonies, peaceful agricultural worlds with no military presence, went dark within minutes. No distress signals. No survivors, just silence and drifting debris where cities once stood. When the reports reached Admiral Victoria Chen aboard the Righteous Fury, she didn't speak for a long time. She just stared at the tactical display. 3 worlds. Erased. Confirm, she finally said, her voice cold and controlled. Commander Hassan swallowed. Confirmed, ma'am. Long-range scans show complete surface sterilization. Energy signatures match Dominion weaponry. Victoria closed her eyes briefly. Not grief, not shock, calculation. They're sending a message, she said. Hassan nodded. Yes, ma'am. And it's not just the colonies. The display shifted. Dozens of red markers appeared across the Valoran system perimeter. Dominion ships. Hundreds of them, and more arriving. They're mobilizing their full fleet, Hassan said quietly. This isn't a raid. It's an invasion. Victoria opened her eyes. Now, there was something in them. Not fear. Something far more dangerous. Resolve. Then we make our stand here, she said. The Council's breaking point. On Valora, panic spread like wildfire. The destruction of the colonies shattered any remaining illusions. The Dominion was not here to conquer. They were here to erase. Inside the Great Hall, the Valoran High Council was in chaos. They're monsters, one counselor cried. We cannot fight this. We must surrender, beg if we have to. And say what? Another snapped. Please spare us while you burn our children? They destroyed entire worlds, a third shouted. What can we possibly do against that kind of power? High Counselor Thera stood at the center, silent, listening, watching, breaking. For his entire life, he had believed in peace above all else. But peace had not saved the colonies. Peace had not stopped the Dominion. Peace had not protected his people. A transmission request interrupted the chaos. Human frequency. Thera hesitated for only a moment. Accept it. Admiral Chen appeared. Her face was harder now, sharper, like something inside her had been stripped down to its core. You've seen the reports, she said. Thera nodded slowly. We have. Then I'll be direct, Victoria continued. The Dominion isn't negotiating. They're escalating. If we don't stop them here, Valora will be next. A counselor stepped forward. Then what do you propose? That we fight them? With what army? With what weapons? Victoria didn't hesitate. With us. Silence. Heavy. Uncertain. You're offering to fight for us? Thera asked. Victoria's gaze didn't waver. I'm offering to fight with you. The human line. Hours later, the human fleet moved into position. Massive dreadnoughts formed a defensive perimeter around Valora. Smaller ships spread out, creating layered formations designed to absorb and redirect incoming attacks. It was a wall, a living, breathing wall of steel and fire. On the bridge of the Righteous Fury, the atmosphere was tense but focused. No panic, no fear, just preparation. Fleet status? Victoria asked. Defensive grid established, Hassan replied. All ships reporting ready. Enemy? Closing fast. Estimated engagement in 12 minutes. Victoria nodded. 12 minutes, she repeated. Then she opened a system-wide channel. Her voice echoed across every human ship and every Valoran receiver. This is Admiral Victoria Chen. Right now, there are millions of people down there who are depending on us. People who cannot fight. People who trusted us to stand between them and the darkness. She paused. Let the weight settle. We do not fail them. Her voice hardened. We do not break. We do not retreat. A beat. If the Dominion wants this system, they will have to burn through us to get it. The first clash. The Dominion fleet entered firing range, and the stars exploded. Beams of energy tore across the void. Missiles streaked like comets. Explosions lit the darkness in blinding flashes. The human fleet held. Barely. Shields at 82%. Port flank taking heavy fire. Return fire, all batteries. Victoria stood at the center of it all. Calm. Precise. Deadly. Focus fire on their command vessels, she ordered. Break their coordination. Human ships responded instantly. Targeted strikes. Surgical. Efficient. Dominion ships began to fall. But for every one destroyed, 2 more advanced. They're overwhelming us, Hassan said. Their numbers are too high. Victoria didn't respond immediately. She was watching something, analyzing, learning. Then she saw it, a pattern. They're not just attacking randomly, she said. They're probing, testing our defenses. For what? Hassan asked. Victoria's eyes narrowed. For weakness. The turning point. A massive Dominion warship broke through the outer defensive line, larger than anything they had seen before, heavily armored, bristling with weapons. It moved like a predator, straight toward Valora. All ships intercept. Hassan shouted, but it was too fast, too powerful. It tore through the human formation, shrugging off attacks that would have destroyed smaller vessels. Shields at 40%. It's not slowing down. Victoria stepped forward. Bring us in. Hassan turned. Ma'am. Intercept course, she repeated. Full power. You're taking us directly into its path. I know. A beat. Then Hassan nodded. Aye, Admiral. The righteous fury surged forward, straight at the monster, face to face with destruction. The Dominion warship loomed ahead, a fortress of black metal and impossible design. Weapons charging, energy building. Victoria didn't blink. Target their main cannon, she said. All weapons ready. Fire. The righteous fury unleashed everything it had. Beams, missiles, railguns. The impact rocked the enemy ship, but it didn't stop. It fired. A beam of pure annihilation slammed into the human flagship. The bridge shook violently, shields collapsing, hull integrity dropping. Multiple systems offline. Victoria gripped the command rail. Hold the line. The ship screamed under the strain, but it didn't break. Not yet. A moment of truth. For a brief, terrifying second, everything hung in the balance. If the righteous fury fell, the line would collapse, and Valora would die. Victoria knew it. Her crew knew it. Everyone knew it. Hassan looked at her, waiting, not for orders, for a decision. Victoria took a breath, then made it. Prepare ramming trajectory. Silence. Ma'am, Hassan whispered. If we can't stop it, she said quietly, we take it with us. The crew froze. Then no one argued, because they understood this was the cost. This was the line. And they were it. The righteous fury surged forward on a collision course with annihilation. Every alarm screamed. Every system strained. Every person on board knew exactly what was coming. Death, not uncertain, not distant, certain, distance to impact. 30 seconds, the navigation officer said, voice shaking despite every attempt to stay composed. Commander Hassan stood beside Admiral Victoria Chun. He didn't try to stop her, didn't question the order, because he understood something fundamental in that moment. This wasn't desperation. This was strategy. If this doesn't work, he began. Victoria didn't look at him. It will, she said. Not hope, not belief, certainty. The last second, 20 seconds, the Dominion warship loomed ahead, its massive cannon charging again, preparing to fire a killing blow that would erase everything in its path. 15 seconds. Enemy weapon charging, critical levels. Victoria's eyes locked onto the tactical display. There, a fluctuation, a microscopic instability in the enemy's forward energy grid, a weakness, The kind you only see when you're close enough to die from it. Divert all remaining power to forward shields, she ordered. Ma'am, that will shut down life support in sections. Do it. No hesitation. No debate. Power surged. Lights dimmed. The ship groaned like a living thing being pushed beyond its limits. 10 seconds. Victoria leaned forward, angled the bow 3 degrees port. Hassan's eyes widened slightly. Now he saw it too. You're not ramming, he whispered. Victoria's voice was razor-sharp. We're cutting through. The impossible maneuver. 5 seconds. The Dominion fired. A beam of pure destruction tore toward them. Now! Victoria shouted. The righteous fury shifted at the last possible instant. The beam grazed the hull. Shields flared, collapsed, but the ship kept moving, straight into the Dominion warship's weakest point. Impact, but not the kind anyone expected. Instead of shattering, the human ship punched through. The weakened energy grid buckled. Armor cracked. The righteous fury tore a burning path across the enemy ship's surface, ripping through weapon systems, detonating internal structures, and emerging out the other side in a storm of fire. For a single frozen moment, nothing happened. Then, the Dominion warship exploded. A chain reaction of catastrophic failures tore it apart from within. The largest ship in their fleet, gone. Silence. Then shock. On every battlefield channel. Silence. Human, Valoran, Dominion, all stunned. Did we just... A crew member whispered. Hassan stared at the display. Target destroyed, he said slowly. Then louder, target destroyed. The bridge erupted. Not cheers. Not yet. Disbelief, because they were still alive. The cost of survival. Damage report. Victoria snapped, already moving forward. Shields gone. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. Multiple casualties. Engines barely responding. The ship was barely holding together. A miracle held together by willpower and failing metal. Victoria nodded once. Seal breaches. Reroute emergency systems. We're not done yet. Hassan looked at her. Ma'am, most ships would be retreating right now. Victoria finally turned to him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned. We're not most ships. The psychological break. Across the battlefield, the Dominion fleet hesitated. For the first time, they had seen something impossible. A weak species destroy their strongest warship at point-blank range and survive. Confusion spread through their ranks. Formation broke. Timing faltered, and Victoria saw it instantly. They're shaken, she said. Hassan nodded. Yes, ma'am. Victoria didn't hesitate. Then we finish this. The counterattack. All ships, Victoria ordered, opening a fleet-wide channel. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The enemy is uncertain. They thought we were weak. They thought we would break. A beat. Show them what happens when they're wrong. Human ships responded immediately. Formation tightened. Weapons aligned. And then they advanced, not retreating, not defending, attacking. Precision strikes ripped through Dominion lines. Coordinated volleys targeted command ships. Fighter squadrons exploited gaps in their defenses. The Dominion fleet, once overwhelming, began to crumble. Valora watches. From the surface of Valora, the sky burned with battle. But something had changed. The Dominion advance had stopped, and now they were falling back. Valoran citizens watched in stunned silence as human ships pushed the enemy away from their world. For the first time since the invasion began, hope returned. The final order. On the righteous fury, systems flickered. The ship was dying, but still fighting. Enemy fleet is retreating. Hassan reported. Victoria shook her head. Not retreating. He looked closer. Realized they're regrouping. For another attack, she finished. A longer one. A deadlier one. Victoria made her decision. Signal all ships, she said. Prepare for phase Omega. Hassan froze. That's total engagement protocol. It's the end game, Victoria replied. Silence. Then, aye, Admiral. There are moments in war when everything pauses, not because the fighting stops, but because both sides understand what comes next. This was one of those moments, the calm before extinction. The battlefield fell into a strange, unnatural stillness. Human ships drifted in formation, scarred, damaged, but unbroken. Across the void, the Dominion fleet reorganized. Tighter, heavier, deadlier. They had adapted. They had learned. And now, they were done underestimating humanity. On the bridge of the Righteous Fury, emergency lights flickered across exhausted faces. Hull integrity was critical. Weapons were strained. Life support barely stable. By all logic, they shouldn't still be in the fight. But they were, because logic had stopped matching a long time ago. Status, Admiral Victoria Chin said. Her voice was quieter now, but heavier. Fleet combat readiness at 61%. Commander Hassan replied. Ammunition low across multiple ships. Casualties significant. He didn't give numbers. He didn't need to. Victoria nodded once, then looked at the tactical display. The Dominion fleet had doubled its attack density. They weren't probing anymore. They were preparing to erase everything in one strike. The enemy's final form. Audio only, Hassan said. They're broadcasting. Victoria didn't hesitate. Put it through. The bridge filled with a voice. Cold, ancient, inhuman. Human commander, it said. A signal broke through the silence. Dominion frequency. Strong. Deliberate. You have exceeded all projections. The crew exchanged glances. This wasn't the same tone as before. This wasn't arrogance. This was recognition. I am Supreme Commander Vorin. A ripple moved through the bridge. He's alive, someone whispered. Victoria's eyes narrowed. No, not alive. Connected. A remote command link. His consciousness. Somewhere else. You have destroyed assets that should have been beyond your reach. Vorin continued. You have inflicted losses that will be remembered. A pause. Then, but you will still lose. The tactical display shifted, and for the first time, the full Dominion force revealed itself. Not hundreds, not even thousands. Thousands more ships emerging from deep space. Reinforcements. A reserve fleet, hidden until now. Hassan's voice dropped. Ma'am, we can't fight that. For the first time, no one argued. The impossible choice. Vorin's voice echoed again. You have one option. Surrender. Stand down your fleet. Withdraw from the system. And we will allow your species to exist. A beat. Refuse. And we will reduce this world to dust. The transmission ended. Silence swallowed the bridge. Not panic. Not chaos. Something worse. A decision point. Hassan turned slowly to Victoria. This is it, he said quietly. We can't win this by force. He wasn't wrong. The numbers were overwhelming. The fleet was damaged. The odds. 0. If we stay, Hassan continued, we lose everything. The fleet, the mission, maybe even Earth if they follow us back. Another officer spoke, voice tight. But if we leave, Valora dies. No one spoke after that, because that was the truth. What it means to be human. Victoria didn't answer immediately. She looked at the display, at the ships, at the planet below, at the millions of lives depending on a single decision. Then she opened a channel. Fleet-wide, Valoran frequencies included. This is Admiral Chun. Her voice was steady, but there was something deeper in it now. Something final. We have been given a choice. Surrender and live, or stand and likely die. She paused, not for drama, for honesty. Every tactical analysis says we should leave. Every survival instinct says we should retreat. A beat, then that's not what we're going to do. The bridge went still. Across the fleet, every crew member listened. Because we are not here to survive, she said. We are here to protect. Her voice hardened. If we leave, Valora burns. If we stay, we might fall. A breath. But if we stay... Her eyes locked forward. We make them pay for every inch. The human decision. Hassan closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. Orders, Admiral. Victoria didn't hesitate. Signal all ships. Phase Omega is now active. Across the fleet, confirmations lit up. This was it. No fallback, no retreat, no surrender. Only one outcome: victory or extinction. Valorous response. On the surface, High Counselor Thera watched the sky. He had heard everything, every word, every choice. And slowly, he sank to his knees, not in despair, in realization. "They're staying," he whispered. "They're staying for us." Around him, other Valorans wept openly, because they understood something they never had before. This was not strategy. This was sacrifice. The final formation. Back in orbit, human ships shifted positions. Not defensive, not cautious, aggressive, unified. Every remaining ship aligned into one massive spearhead formation. All power redirected. All weapons primed. A single strike. All or nothing. "Enemy advancing," Hassan reported. "Good," Victoria said. Her voice was calm again. Too calm. Let them come. The distance between the two fleets vanished. No more warnings. No more hesitation. Only impact. The collision of civilizations. The Dominion advanced like a tidal wave of steel. Thousands of ships. Layer upon layer of overwhelming force. Against them, a single human spear. Broken ships. Damaged systems. Outnumbered beyond reason. And yet, they charged. "Engage all weapons." Commander Hassan shouted. The void ignited. Beams carved through darkness. Missiles screamed across space. Explosions bloomed like dying stars. But this wasn't a battle anymore. It was a storm, and the human fleet was diving straight into its heart. The line begins to break. Starboard flank collapsing. Multiple ships down. We're losing formation. One by one, human vessels were overwhelmed, outgunned, outnumbered, destroyed. Each loss punched a hole in the line. Each explosion brought the Dominion closer to Valora. On the Righteous Fury, systems failed faster than they could be repaired. Reactor instability rising. Secondary weapons offline. Hull integrity at 38%. Hassan turned to Victoria. "We can't hold this much longer." He wasn't wrong. For all their courage, for all their defiance, they were losing. The realization. Victoria stared at the tactical display, at the collapsing formation, at the unstoppable enemy advance. And then she saw it. Not a weakness, not a flaw, something else. A truth. "There are too many," she said quietly. Hassan exhaled. "Yes, we can't destroy them all." "No." A pause. Then, "We don't have to." Hassan looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" Victoria's eyes sharpened. "We don't win by killing the fleet." She pointed at the center of the Dominion formation, at a cluster of ships protected by multiple defensive layers. Their command network. Hassan's breath caught. "If we take that out, they lose coordination," she finished. "They become chaos." "And chaos," Hassan said slowly, "we can survive." The cost of victory. Hassan already knew what she was about to say. He just didn't want to hear it. "That position is heavily shielded," he said. "We can't break through with what we have left." Victoria didn't look at him. "I can." Silence. "Ma'am," Hassan whispered. She turned to him now, and for the first time, there was something human in her expression. Not just command, not just resolve. Acceptance. "The Righteous Fury still has enough power for one full overload," she said. Hassan shook his head immediately. "No. If we drive into their command cluster." "No. And detonate the core." "No." The word echoed across the bridge. Crew members froze. Hassan stepped closer, his voice breaking. "You're talking about a suicide run." Victoria held his gaze. "I'm talking about ending the war." The weight of command. Silence stretched. Heavy. Unavoidable. "You don't have to do this," Hassan said quietly. "We can find another way." Victoria didn't respond immediately, because they both knew there was no other way. "The fleet needs a chance," she said. "The Valorans need a future. a breath, and someone has to make that possible. Hassan's fist clenched. Then let me take the ship. Victoria shook her head. You have command responsibilities. So do you, he snapped. I'm the only one who can make this call, she replied. Not harsh, not angry. Final, the last order. Victoria stepped back, her voice returning to command tone. All hands, prepare for emergency evacuation. The bridge went silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Because now they understood. You heard the Admiral. Hassan shouted, his voice raw. Evacuate. That's an order. Reluctantly, painfully, the crew began to move. Escape pods launched. Transport ships pulled survivors away. Piece by piece, the righteous fury emptied, until only a handful remained. Hassan stood still. I'm not leaving, he said. Victoria didn't argue. She just looked at him. Someone has to make sure you hit the target, he added. A faint, tired smile touched her face. Then let's finish this. The final run. The righteous fury turned, not away from the battle, into its deadliest point. Dominion ships fired, relentless, unforgiving. The human flagship took hit after hit, hull tearing, systems collapsing, but it kept moving, closer, closer, to target. 60 seconds, Hassan said. Victoria's hands were steady on the controls. Reactor overload initiated. A low hum filled the ship, growing louder, brighter, more unstable. 40 seconds. Dominion ships began to react. They saw it now. Too late. They're trying to intercept. Hassan warned. Let them, Victoria replied. The moment that defines everything. 20 seconds. The command cluster loomed ahead. Protected, guarded, vulnerable. 10 seconds. The ship was barely holding together. Fire spread through the corridors. Systems failed one by one. But still, it flew. Hassan looked at Victoria. Been an honor, ma'am. She didn't look away from the target. The honor was mine. A beat. Then 5 seconds. 3. The righteous fury tore through the last defensive barrier. Dominion ships scrambled to intercept, but they were too late. 2. The command cluster filled the viewport. Dozens of control vessels, linked, synchronized, vulnerable for the first time. 1. Victoria didn't close her eyes. She didn't look away. She drove the ship forward. Now, the detonation. For a fraction of a second, everything went silent. Then, the righteous fury became a star. A blinding sphere of energy erupted at the heart of the Dominion formation. White, pure, absolute. The shock wave expanded instantly, consuming the command ships, overloading their systems, shattering their coordination network. A chain reaction followed. One ship lost control, then another, then dozens. Weapons misfired. Shields collapsed. Formation dissolved into chaos. The Dominion fleet, the unstoppable force, broke. The fall of control. Across the battlefield, Dominion ships began colliding with each other. Some fired blindly. Others shut down entirely. Without central command, they were no longer an army. They were a storm without direction, on surviving human ships. Stunned silence gave way to realization. They did it, someone whispered. They actually did it. Commander Hassan's chair sat empty on the bridge of another vessel. He had transferred command before the final run. Now, every captain understood what had just been given to them. A chance. The human response. A new voice cut across the fleet. Calm, focused, determined. This is acting command. A senior captain took control. All ships, this is our moment. Target disabled vessels. Disarm, disable, destroy, whatever it takes. Do not let them regroup. The human fleet surged forward, not as a shield, not as a last stand, but as a finishing blow. Precise strikes tore through disorganized Dominion ships. One by one, they fell, others powered down. Surrender signals began to appear, scattered at first, then spreading, then everywhere. Valor survives. On the surface, the sky transformed. The storm of destruction began to fade. Dominion ships, once an unstoppable threat, now drifted powerless or burning. And at the center of it all, a fading light, where the righteous fury had been. High Counselor Thera stood motionless. Tears streamed freely down his face. "They saved us," he whispered. "They gave everything and they saved us." Around him, millions watched the same sky and understood the same truth. They were alive because someone else had chosen not to be. The last signal, deep in the debris field, amid the wreckage and fading energy, a faint transmission flickered. Weak, broken, but real. "This is Chun." Static swallowed most of it. Target destroyed. A pause. Then, mission complete. The signal cut out. Gone. Forever. The end of an empire. Without their command structure. Without their coordination. The Dominion forces collapsed. Entire sections surrendered. Others attempted retreat, only to be intercepted or destroyed. The myth of their invincibility. Gone. Their greatest commander. Defeated. Their strongest fleet. Broken. In a single moment, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted. The silence after war. Hours later, the battlefield was quiet. No weapons fire. No explosions. Only drifting debris. And the survivors. Human ships moved slowly through the wreckage, rescuing, recovering, remembering. Every victory carried weight. Every life saved, shadowed by the ones lost. 12,000 humans, millions of Valorans, and two names that would never be forgotten. Victoria Chun. Hassan. War ends in silence. Not victory, not celebration. Silence. The age where thousands of ships once clashed, only debris remained. Fragments of metal drifted slowly through space. Burned hulls, shattered engines, broken weapons, and among them, escape pods. Survivors. Human ships moved carefully through the graveyard. Rescue teams worked without rest. No cheers, no triumph, only duty, because victory had come at a cost too heavy to celebrate. A world that still stands. On Valora, the sky was clear again. For the first time in months. No warships, no fire, no fear. Citizens stepped out into the open, slowly at first, then in growing numbers. They looked up and saw something they thought they might never see again. Peace. High Counselor Thera stood before the Great Hall, the same place where panic had once ruled. Now, it was filled with quiet, reverent, grateful. "We are alive," he said softly. Not a speech, not a decoration, just truth, the weight of sacrifice. In orbit, reports were finalized, numbers confirmed, losses counted. 12,000 human lives, millions of Valorans, and one flagship gone, along with the woman who commanded it, Admiral Victoria Chun, Commander Hassan, names that would echo far beyond the system, not because they won a battle, but because of how they chose to fight it. The message to the galaxy. Days later, a transmission spread across known space. Not a threat, not a warning, a statement. From humanity, this is the United Human Government. The Dominion attack on Valora has been repelled. Their fleet has been destroyed. A pause, long enough for the words to sink in. We did not seek this conflict, but we will not abandon those under our protection. Another pause, colder now, stronger. Let this be understood clearly. Any future aggression against allied worlds will be met with the same response. The message ended, but its impact didn't. Across the galaxy, species listened and remembered the fall of the Dominion. Without its command structure, without its greatest fleet, the Dominion fractured. Rebellions ignited across its territories. Worlds that had once been conquered rose up. Chains broke. Empires cracked. Not overnight, but inevitably, because fear had been their greatest weapon. And now, fear was gone. Remembrance. 6 months later, Valora held a ceremony, not for victory, for memory. A vast garden had been built. At its center, a wall of light, names carved into crystal. Valoran, human, side by side, equal, forever. High Counselor Thera stood before it. Beside him, human representatives, soldiers, civilians, families of the fallen, We remember them. Thera said, they who stood when they could have fled. They who fought when they could have surrendered. They who gave their lives so others could live. His voice trembled slightly, but he didn't stop. They were not our people by birth, but they became our people by choice. Her legacy, at the center of the memorial, a single name stood apart, not above the others, but marked Victoria Chun. Beneath it, an inscription. She did not stand because she was ordered to. She stood because it was right. Visitors came every day, some in silence, some in tears, some simply to understand, because her story had spread far beyond Valora. A story not just of war, but of choice, the human truth. Back on Earth, a question was asked again and again. Was it worth it? 12,000 lives, a flagship, a commander who never came home. The answer wasn't simple. It never is. But among those who understood, those who had seen the sky above Valora, the answer was this. Some things are not measured in cost. They are measured in what would have been lost if no one stood at all. The future begins. In orbit above Valora, new structures formed. Defense platforms, joint fleets, human and Valoran ships side by side, not as protector and protected, but as allies. A new kind of relationship, built not on power, but on trust and sacrifice. The final moment. High Counselor Thera stood once more beneath the stars. Beside him, a human officer. They watched the sky in silence. Then Thera spoke. Will there always be wars? The officer didn't answer immediately, because the truth mattered. Yes, she said finally. There will. Thera nodded slowly, then asked, and will you always come? The officer looked up at the stars, at the endless dark, at the fragile lights within it, and answered, yes,